Alright, so check this out. Time slip road trip. One time, I left the range with my dad in his truck and my son driving us in my car. He got on the interstate right in front of us, but he got stuck behind a semi-truck as we merged. My son was able to go around in the second lane, but my dad just stayed cruising, no hurry. I thought how we were going to beat him to the neighborhood as I watched as he disappeared in the side mirror. It's a 30-minute drive home, and we live near each other, and there's only one route. My son was commenting on how my dad wasn't going to be home for another 15 minutes because he was driving so slow. I have his location, so I checked it as we pull on to the main neighborhood road. And it says he's already home, in the back of the neighborhood. I text him and I ask him how long he's been home because we passed him and we never saw him again. He calls me stunned because he had been home long enough to bring in all of his things and let the dogs out that he just let back in. He didn't know how he beat us either. He said he was behind the semi for most of the way, and he thought that we'd be home already. We still don't know what happened. This is the only time that I've been legit spooked by a weird happening. My first glitch. Yesterday, I think I experienced my first honest-to-goodness glitch in the Matrix, and it's been messing with my head ever since. According to the flowchart, I should post my story or counter or experience or whatever I'm calling it, so here it is. I've been a lurker for a while now, but I've never had anything to contribute until now. Typically, I come to work at 0700, and most of the others come in about an hour later. I keep an eye on the lobby until the window is open. The shades are drawn until 0800, and I do so via the camera system. When you enter the building, there's an outer lobby and then a second inner lobby after going through the glass doors between the two lobbies. The window is bulletproof glass, and the door is secure, so you must have your fob to enter or be buzzed in. The only reason I keep an eye on the lobby is to let other employees in. My work bestie, we'll call them L, comes in a little after 0800 each day. I checked the cameras and watched L enter the lobby from the outer lobby. I watched her walk through the glass doors, and she was wearing her yellow or green puffy-ish coat, carrying her canvas bag and purple paisley lunch bag on her right arm. She used her right hand to swipe her fob and enter the building through the secure door. I heard it open. Of note, she has the same routine each day. She comes into the area where they have their desks and I have my office. She turns on a particular light, punches in at the computer located at the window, and then she sets her things on her chair at her own desk. I was hanging out by my office door, chomping at the bit to tell her something, and she didn't come through for quite some time. I thought to myself, maybe she went to see E first thing instead. He was looking for her after all. I sat back down at my desk to continue working, and I watch her via the camera. She comes in the outer lobby, comes through the doors from the outer lobby into the inner lobby. Everything is the same except for her coat. She now has on a reddish/pinkish coat, but her path and movements and bag and lunch bag, it's all the same. I know something didn't happen where the cameras started playing old footage from a prior morning. All of my other views I have 10 views at once throughout the building, were also running normally. I also haven't looked back at the footage to see if I saw her twice. I have a hunch that I'll only see her the once this time around. It was so trippy because I know that I watched her walk in that first time in the yellow/green coat. I kept coming back to it throughout the day and thinking on it, so I thought that I would share my first glitch here with you. Scissors mocked me. Around maybe 4 months ago, we lost our office scissors. We used them frequently, and them being gone was really strange because we always put them back in the designated drawer, which is kind of an autistic tick from me. Anyway, yesterday, we bought a brand new pair of scissors because we got tired of using the kitchen scissors for everything. Well, guess who just appeared in the drawer after we unpacked the new scissors and put them in the drawer? I can't put my head around the fact that we searched for the original scissors in every possible drawer and emptied them several times. It's just strange. P.S. I really enjoy reading all the stories here, but I never would have thought that I could write one of my own. Curious case of time glitch disappearing Pita. I stopped and got some takeout curry chicken, rice, and a pita posing as naan. Brought it home and I was excited to dig in. I had ripped the pita in half. I put one half directly in front of me on the counter, and the other half I put back in the bag that it came in. I was almost all set to move into my living room, but had to grab a paper towel just off to my left. I reached over and ripped off a couple of pieces, turned around, and the half pita that I just ripped off was gone. I was confused, but I calmly started to look in the immediate area, thinking maybe it fell or slid just out of view. A bit more frustrated now, I started pulling out drawers and opening cabinet doors. Nothing. I took a few steps back, I pulled in a few deep breaths, and carefully scanned the entire area. But nope. Gone. About 15 minutes in, my friend in my living room asks if I'm okay. I asked him to do me a big favor and come see if he sees my half a pita. He looks over my counters, my sink, cupboards, drawers, fridge, and then asks why the hell he's looking for half a pita. I explained that it was literally right in front of me, but when I turned around, it was gone. Now, here's where it gets really weird. We have a few exchanges and things start to slow down. He reaches over and grabs the bag that contains the other half of the pita. He pulls out and sees that there's only half in there, folds it and puts it back in the bag. As he placed the bag back on the counter, in the blink of an eye, the missing pita was sitting back on the counter, less than an inch away from my waist, leaning up against the counter. It wasn't there. Blink in what felt like slow motion. As my eyes opened from the blink, it's there again. We both stood there, stunned, to say the least. Now, he's the kind of guy whose brain would break if he thought it through, so he abruptly switched back into the demeanor that he was in before I called him into the kitchen. But me? Not so much. To top it all off, the very next day, a YouTube channel that I follow put out an unusual video that's not in line with what's usually discussed on the channel. Now, the host of the YouTube channel said, "I received so many messages from people all around the world reporting what I can only characterize as a glitch in time or some kind of warp in the timeline, asking if anyone else had shared similar stories." And that really just puts a bow on this whole experience for me. I want to mention something briefly. I work a full-time job, I'm a father of 2 wild children, and I enjoy making these YouTube videos and podcast episodes for you as regularly as I can. I need a lot of focus in a lot of different parts of my life. That's why I've chosen to partner with Magic Mind. Now, I've used Magic Mind before in the past, and I want you to experience the same kind of focus, sharpness, productivity, and overall creativity that's demanded of us in every different aspect of our lives. Magic Mind uses natural ingredients like ashwagandha, turmeric, and lion's mane to propel me and you into a flow state where we can do our best work. Magic Mind has a one-time deal for you that's only accessible through the unique link that's provided in the description of this episode. You can subscribe and try the shots for free, only paying the shipping for the trial 3 bottles pack. And if you'd like to, you can cancel your subscription at any time to not get charged after 1 month. The website is magicmind.com/scarystoriestrial, and the code that you'll want to put in to unlock your free sample trial is Scary Stories Trial. That link and that code is in the description of this episode right now. My sister found my sports bra in a place where I had already looked. I was 16 years old. My boyfriend at the time invited me to go with him to his family reunion. It was tradition to play a game of soccer at that family reunion, which I was willing to do. I obviously wanted to wear my sports bra. I'm in my bedroom, getting ready, and I'm wearing a shirt but no bra. My parents were not home. They were out having a lunch date, so my sister and I were home alone, just the 2 of us. Here's something that you should know about me. I'm very neurotic. I always start getting ready for something at least an hour before I'm scheduled to leave the house. That way, I have all the time in the world to get dressed. When my sister noticed the time and also noticed that I still hadn't left, she asked me about that. I told her that I couldn't find my sports bra. My sister then said, "Isn't that it right there?" And she pointed to my bed. And there it was. My sports bra was right on my pillow. I didn't recall placing it on my bed at all, but I'm telling you that while I was searching, I looked on my bed multiple times just to see if I left it there without remembering. My bed was made, and there was nothing else on my bed, beside my blankets, of course. Therefore, this cannot be explained away with the theory that I just didn't notice. I'm telling you, I looked on top of my bed multiple times, and that sports bra was never there. When my sister entered my room and pointed to my bed, my bra was there right on my pillow. Now, I didn't mention any of this to my sister. I just thanked her, hugged her, and then I left. After I put on my sports bra, of course. Blind fixture vanished and then reappeared. I can't really explain what my wife and I just experienced. It's not terribly exciting, but there's no logical explanation that we can think of. I was upstairs, fitting a window blind in my boy's room. It's a 4x2 meter room with very little in it other than his bed. The only door is opposite the window. My wife was downstairs with the boy. I asked her to come up for a second so she could help me position the blind against the window. For some context, we're both pretty frustrated already and want this thing done, as it's taken longer than it should have due to problems with tools and having to saw the blind. It's past the boy's bedtime and we just want it done. So, she comes up, we grab an end of the blind each, and I see one of the brackets is missing from the end of the tube. It was literally just there, and now it isn't. I'm baffled as I hadn't removed it, or seen or heard it drop, and she's annoyed because it's setting the simple task back even further. We scour the room, although there really isn't anywhere that it could be. I upend the bed, I check the curtains, check my one and only pocket, I retrace my steps, but it's gone. Exasperated and confused, we resign ourselves to not being able to get this job done tonight. She returns downstairs and I pack up my drill and just set it outside the door. As I turn around into the room again, there, on the floor, bright white against the charcoal carpet, is the missing 2-inch bracket. There's literally no way that either of us wouldn't have seen that. But there it is. I call my wife and I tell her that I found it and where it was, and she's as confused as me. I genuinely don't understand what happened. Soccer ball. Last night, my kid wouldn't listen and kept kicking his soccer ball in the house to the point where I got frustrated and I grabbed the soccer ball and literally threw it into the garage so that he couldn't mess with it anymore. He was right there. My wife was on the couch and she saw me throw it. The next morning, my son has soccer practice and we cannot find the ball anywhere in the garage, and we looked all over. So, he grabs a different ball and goes to practice. Fast forward to later that afternoon, I go to mow the grass, and as I get around to the backyard, the ball that I threw into the garage is in our back patio, underneath the patio table. I about fell over when I saw it. It was late at night when I threw the ball into the garage and everyone went to bed shortly after, and nobody went into the garage after I threw the ball. All three of us know that I threw the ball into the garage, and somehow the ball was outside the next day after nobody had been in there at all. I have no explanation for how this happened. Friends and I watched a slow-flying fire fly through the air. I found this sub after reading about that lamp story, and after looking around, I decided to post this. Honestly, I can't explain what we saw, so maybe it qualifies as a glitch. Anyway, last week, a buddy of mine flew into town from out of state for his younger brother's high school graduation. Before he flew down, he reached out to all of us and wanted to plan for us to get together while he was in town. Two of the guys still live in Georgia, but I drove down from Tennessee to see them all as well since we don't get the chance very often. We went out for some Korean barbecue, and afterwards, we're standing in the parking lot just chatting and hanging out more prior to ending the evening. Everything was normal up to this point. I don't recall which one of us saw it first, but eventually, one of us saw something in the sky above and pointed it out to the group. The only way that I can describe what we saw was that it was like a flickering flame, like a burning fire just slowly and awkwardly flying through the sky. At first, we thought it was a firework or something, but it just kept burning and slowly traveling across the sky above us. It was moving entirely too slow to be a firework, moving horizontally. I actually got chills for a minute, thinking that it might be a freaking missile or something with the situation that Russia had going on. One of the guys also freaked out as he thought it was an airplane on fire, but as we watched it, we all ended up agreeing that it looked too close to be moving that slow. We could just about make out the different colors of the fire, like that flickering orange and yellow flame kind of a thing, so it was close enough to see those details. I'm gonna guess maybe 200 or 300 feet up. The speed was slow, very slow in my opinion for something as low as that felt. The speed also varied a bit. It would speed up and slow down oddly. It didn't fly in a straight line, but this like weird, unstable looking way. As in, it would move left and right, in relation to its direction at least, in quick little short bursts. Definitely not a plane. We couldn't make out any other details at all as it slowly moved across the sky. I suggested that it might be a drone on fire, but one of the guys who actually flies drones said that didn't seem right. He said the way it flew didn't look like a drone, and also said he would be surprised if a flaming drone could keep flying for as long as we had been watching this thing. Lastly, he mentioned that lithium cells generally go up pretty violently, and this was definitely not a violent fire. It just seemed like a flying, gentle campfire or something. It never fell from the sky. It never went out. We just watched until it went past the buildings and the tree line. In total, I estimate that we might have watched it for about 3 or 4 minutes or so. Close to the end of the event, one of the guys got out his phone and took a short video. We didn't do it any sooner, as we were all just shocked at what we were seeing at first. After that, we were a bit freaked out, so we called it a night and we split. On the way back to my hotel, I just kept thinking about what we saw. I don't know why, but I just felt uncomfortable for the rest of the night. I kept looking up into the sky for the rest of the night. Just had a really weird experience with losing and then finding my glasses. On Thursday night, I wound up falling asleep on the love seat in our living room while watching TV. I woke up that morning to find my glasses weren't on my face. I looked around all the logical spots where they could have fallen off, or whatever spots that I could have put them if I had woken up for half a second to take them off and had forgotten about. I don't know why I thought that was so funny. Just imagining somebody waking up to take their glasses off and then immediately falling back to sleep. They weren't anywhere obvious, so I pulled back and I got a case of the sillies. I'm sorry. They weren't anywhere obvious, so I pulled the back and seat cushions off the love seat and checked all the nooks and crannies around the pull-out bed inside the chair. I tipped it back to see if they were under it, and I didn't see them anywhere. I checked the side table, its drawers, behind the love seat. I wandered the whole living room for like 3 or 4 times, and my glasses were absolutely gone. At that point, I gave up because I had to head out for work, and I wound up having to grab my spare pair, which have a broken bow and absolutely suck to wear. When I got home, I looked again, pulling the love seat apart and searching everywhere that I had checked that morning, and still, my glasses seemed to have just vanished. On Saturday, when I got home from work, I did all that again and then some, pulling cushions, checking weird places with my phone's flashlight, and combing every square inch of the living room, figuring I must have had some sleepwalking episode and set them somewhere really dumb. But again, no glasses. And by that point, I started to think that a tear in the space-time continuum had opened up in my living room and swallowed my glasses, which were at that moment floating in a fish tank in the home of some fifth-dimensional alien being. Then, yesterday, Sunday, I get home from work again, half pissed off that my glasses were still missing because I was getting sick of wearing the spares. The broken bow was somehow making the nose rest cut into the bridge of my nose, so I was spending every waking moment in actual pain from these things, and I decided to do my fourth search. I started with the love seat, again, checking the right side, the left side, and then bam! There they were. There were my folded up glasses wedged between the cushion and the armrest like a lost TV remote. I mean, I'm not complaining that I finally found them, but God, I'm so confused as to how they were there. I pulled the cushion off that love seat 3 or 4 times, and it's the only cushion that it has, so by all means I should have found my glasses right off the bat. They should have clattered right to the floor the second that I pulled the cushion out. I don't know, dude. All I can think of is that they were somehow stuck to the edge of the cushion, so my glasses came with it whenever I pulled it out, but that makes zero sense either because there was nothing for them to stick to or snag onto, especially since the glasses part, aka the smooth side, was facing the cushion. Other than that, I have no answers. Not unless we've got a homeless dude living in our attic who decided to play a prank on me. Or ghosts. Or maybe that rift in the space-time continuum decided to spit them back into our plane of existence. I don't know. It just makes me feel extra motivated to buy a spare pair. I can tell you that much. Same person in 2 places at once. Me and my partner are both Uber Eats drivers. I had a pickup from McDonald's. I was waiting for my order when a man that works at a local salad bar walks in with his 2 kids. I recognized him instantly and stood about a meter away from him, so I know it's for sure him. I pick up the food 2 minutes later and I leave. A few minutes later, my partner calls saying, "Guess who I just dropped food off to?" I made jokes about whoever, and then he says, "The salad bar guy." He is far south from the McDonald's at his drop-off, so I know this isn't possible. I said to him, "That can't be because I just saw him at McDonald's up north." We then went over his appearance, and we're both positive that we saw the same man. And as we both pick up food from his salad bar quite often, we're pretty familiar with him. We're just both so confused. I found yarn that I don't own on my carpet. So, I'm a crocheter, and also a menace to society, and more pressingly, myself. When I'm crocheting on my bed and I trim loose ends of yarn, I tend to drop them on the carpet for future me to deal with whenever I next vacuum. Mind you, this happened on a day after I'd recently vacuumed, so the floor was clean for once to start with. I was working on a project that utilized 4 shades of red, happily weaving in ends and dropping yarn on the floor, as is my wont, and going to bed without cleaning it up. When I woke up, I surveyed the damage that I'd done the previous night. Amongst all the red yarn that I dropped was a singular strand of a pea-greenish color. Now, I can't stress this enough that I have zero explanation as to how it got there or where it even came from. Not only was my floor completely clean before I'd started working the previous day, and I wasn't working with that color of yarn, but I did not, at the time, own any green yarn, nor had I ever purchased or used yarn in that particular shade of green in my life. I know, it's a small occurrence, but it's perplexing and logically improbable, so I figured it was worth sharing. Body on top of the truck wasn't there. This happened my first year of high school, and I never really got over it. I used to take the school bus every day back home, and there was one big highway connecting the more central area where the school was with the countryside where me and most of my classmates lived. When there was a traffic accident or some car broke down, the whole highway would become congested because it was a very narrow one to begin with. And there was this afternoon where one truck broke down and paralyzed 3 out of the 4 lanes because it was so huge. Our school bus was only a few meters away, so as we were stuck there waiting for the police to release traffic, I could see the broken truck in very sharp detail. The driver outside, calling on his phone, checking the tires, stuff like that. When I looked up on top of the truck, not the cabin, the actual cargo, I saw a body laying down, wearing white socks and covered by a white plastic. I just stared at it for minutes and it never moved. I was honestly so shocked that I didn't even manage to say a word and ask if anyone else was seeing what I was seeing. I was mainly the quiet kid, and I think everyone else was just distracted on their phones or something. As I said, it would take a while for traffic to be released because the highway was just so narrow, so we were there for at least probably half an hour. But when the bus finally departed, I looked again at the top of the truck and there was nothing there anymore. It simply vanished, disappeared. But how could it have? This was a big truck. The driver or someone else could have never climbed it. And even if someone would have, the police would have certainly noticed, right? I don't know. It's very strange. I never quite got what that was. Somebody asked a good comment. They said, "Did you ever find out for sure if someone had died in that accident? And was the accident ever on the news?" OP replies with, "No one died, and it wasn't an accident, just the truck was broken down. I drove by the same spot with my dad later that day, and the truck was still there. No ambulance ever came, no forensics either, which both happens when there's an accident with victims, so this wasn't that." Glitches that anyone can do. I have a habit of doing 2 things on the computer at once. Typically, this is listening to / watching a podcast on YouTube while I'm playing a game. Normally, if this is the type of thing that had happened maybe once or twice, I would just chuckle and then write it off, but This has happened about 50 times, so there's gotta be something to it. Instance 1. I'd posted a KFC joke on Facebook. I thought it would get more laughs, but it didn't. I forgot about it. Then I loaded up a moonlighting episode on Hulu and went back to Facebook, where I had a notification. A friend of mine, Bill Ander, had just laughed at the post, and almost simultaneously, Sybil Shepherd's character, Maddie, says this exact phrase: "We could have been in charge of all the security for all the chicken-licking stores in California." Instance 2. I was playing the popular Steam game Planet Crafter and watching the Y-Files. Just as I was extracting the element silicon, AJ, the host of the Y-Files, actually said the word silicon. Instance 3. Playing Savior, a Ren'Py game, while listening to Solve's song, Vanilla Tears. She sings, "Tell me what you're waiting for." At the exact moments that I'm reading the text, "Come on, what are you waiting for? Tell me what's on your mind," from the Ren'Py game. And anyone can download both of these. Instance number 4. I hadn't thought of or even heard about the magazine Maxim in at least 12 years, maybe more. I was playing another Ren'Py game, this one called The Roommate, while I turned on a documentary called The Dark Side of the 2000s. They just started talking about the rise and fall of the magazine Maxim, and the game simultaneously had me interact with Maxim magazine. I actually let out that whistle that people do when they've been spooked. There are many others, but they're all the same. I'm playing a game or visual novel and watching a show, and some sort of completely bizarre coincidence will take place. Clearly, with the show Moonlighting, with that show originally airing back in 1984, time displacement seems to have no bearing on the likelihood of this coincidence. Previous life detected. Hi. I've been listening to your videos for a few weeks. Lately, the algorithm has come across several past life stories that you've read. I got curious and wondered who my previous avatar might have been, so I asked the Matrix to let me know if possible. Well, a couple of hours later, I was Googling something and entered the first 2 letters into the search bar and no more. I don't remember hitting the enter key. I immediately ended up on a Wikipedia page with a black and white photo. I felt nauseous when I saw the face, even now, to be honest. There's a guy that looks like me if I was a man, or at least close to my appearance. He was executed by the Nazis in 1939. The Wikipedia article doesn't say much about his life, only that he was an active member of the resistance movement after Germany invaded my country. The thing is, if I Google his name, this page doesn't show up in the results, and if I search the name directly on Wikipedia, his profile is at the bottom since there are more famous people with the same name. So there's no way that I accidentally hit the wrong keys and got the first result. I'm a screenwriter, and for the last 6 months, I've been working on a mini-series that's somehow better than everything I've written so far, and the writing comes easier than ever before. How did I name the main character all those months ago? You can guess. Both name and surname. He died on the 17th, and I was born on the 17th. Also, he was exactly 1 level down from my current life path number. My mom says I used to be a strange kid. I was instantly interested in politics and other adult stuff. I've always been very patriotic for a girl, including my writing, which is mostly spy-themed. And I guess, now I know why. All the best, Dani. Random shirt glitches out of existence and then materializes half a year later. I've never posted to Reddit before, but I have checked out stuff here and there, so I hope I'm going about this the right way. Also, not sure if this belongs in r/paranormal or not, but it feels more appropriate here. This sounds like the most random, stupid thing ever, and I've put off posting because of such. However, it was such a bizarre and peculiar incident that I finally caved, and here we are. I realize there will be people who simply write this off or scuff, but this is my story. A few years back, I had a random shirt go missing from my closet, only to one day, much later, close to half a year later, if memory serves me correct, find it nice and neatly folded laying on the floor in front of my closet doors. What makes this weird is I'm an extremely orderly person, almost OCD in nature, and live my life by schedule, routine, and order to the best of my ability. I do everything a certain way. I know what I have and own, and I know where everything is in my home. At the time, I lived in apartments. It's outside of my character to misplace something or lose track of most anything. I'm just one of those types of people. I noticed a cheap Walmart V-neck shirt wasn't hanging in my closet one day while I was looking for it. The brand is rustic blue, size small, color burgundy. I don't even know if they still make or sell this specific brand anymore. And this was odd because I remembered specifically washing, dyeing, and hanging it in the closet recently, just like I've always done. But I wrote it off at the time, thinking maybe I left it at my girlfriend's place. Or that maybe I was tripping out and it was in the dirty laundry. No, it was not in the dirty laundry, and no, it was not at my girlfriend's apartment. I even asked her a few times to double check, and we actually looked together for the shirt once. It was a dumb, cheap shirt that no one would ever care about in a million years, but I liked it because of its versatility. I could throw it on before church, running errands in town, or just wear it casually around my home. Plus, it was really soft and comfortable. I really liked that shirt, so when it went missing, I noticed. And I went to great efforts to find it. Apart from the above-mentioned searching dirty laundry basket and girlfriend's place, I scoured through my apartment, looking behind furniture, looking in other rooms, cracks, crevices. I looked literally everywhere, and this shirt just vanished. The apartment complex has a small laundromat for renters to use, and I checked down there, thinking that I might have left it behind, but no, not there either. Then I thought maybe another renter took the shirt from a dryer, but sadly, a small rural town in which I reside has a drug problem and addicts rob and steal all the time. My apartment complex had just a few of these characters, but they never really appeared to do anything too crazy. But I have heard of people getting their laundry stolen. I used to throw in my laundry into either the washers or dryers and simply walk back to my apartment until they were done, come back and fold everything, and then walk back to put the clothes away. There was a chance that it got taken by someone at that laundromat when I wasn't there. That's actually what I came to believe, so I finally gave up looking and just chalked it up to a loss. But for a while, it laid in the back of my mind, and bothered me a fair deal. I eventually forgot about the shirt. I got some new ones and moved on. Months went by, and I went about my life as usual. Then, one random day, out of the blue, I found my long-lost shirt. Coming home from work one day, I was getting ready to get showered and cleaned up, venturing to my closet to pick out what I'm going to wear after my shower. And right there, right on the floor, directly in front of and basically up against my closet with double doors, was my burgundy V-neck shirt, folded nice and neat. Before my very eyes was the shirt that evaded me for all this time. I was flabbergasted. I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. There it was, after such a long time, and heck, I had even eventually forgotten about it. It had been so long. All those memories of the shirt going missing and me painstakingly looking for it everywhere came back to me, and I was confused. A few weird things worth mentioning. This shirt was folded in a way that I simply don't fold my shirts. It was folded like how you would see sitting on a store shelf, the two sleeves tucked behind and folded with part of the front of the shirt showing. I fold my shirts with a slight crease down the middle temporarily until I'm able to hang them up. This shirt wasn't folded by me. Secondly, there's absolutely no way this shirt could have been laying there this entire time in front of my closet, where I come and stand every single day without me obviously noticing. Also, I wouldn't have been able to open the closet doors without them catching on the shirt. I was happy to have this cheap shirt back because, like I said, I loved it. It's super comfortable. But this whole situation was extremely odd and felt off. How did the shirt go missing for such a long time and randomly end up resurfacing months later on the floor, folded in a way that I don't fold shirts? Here's a bit of the timeline and some other items of interest. This happened several years ago at my former residence, again, in an apartment complex. I didn't mention previously, but this complex is right beside the biggest cemetery in the town. And no, I don't really believe this to be paranormal in nature, nor does the cemetery have anything to do with this. I'm a super skeptical person and usually dismiss any ghost story or things similar. It's not that I'm not open to supernatural things, I just don't see this being a thing. I can admit that it does feel like there's a small chance that there's a paranormal element in this event, but I highly doubt it. That's one of the reasons I opted to post this in r/glitch in the Matrix instead of r/paranormal. I moved to my current residence. It's a small 2-bedroom house in late 2019. December to be exact, because it was right before Christmas. The shirt was found earlier that year, close to around springtime, because I remember finding the shirt before Easter 2019. I can't say for sure when the shirt went missing, but I believe it was just before autumn of 2018, because I was still wearing t-shirts. With autumn and winter, like most people, I wear long sleeve stuff like hoodies and sweaters, so the t-shirts get placed to the side of the closet until spring. I would have still been wearing t-shirts at the time that it disappeared. Easter 2019 fell on April 21st. Backtracking into pre-autumn 2018, September 22 would mean roughly 6 to 7 months with this shirt being absent. It's about half a year. That's about the best I can do as far as the timeline. Again, I never considered sharing this story until recently and rejected the idea only to finally decide to share it. This person includes an edit that debunks some theories. The first theory is my girlfriend had it and just put it back one day. My ex-girlfriend now would never do such a thing, and I considered for a time that she was pranking me. I quickly wrote this off because it's not just in her nature to do, plus, why would she? For 7 months, just let me worry about a stupid, cheap shirt so that she could laugh one day when I found it? It doesn't make any sense. Also, I specifically looked for the shirt at her place with her, and I left no stone unturned, even checking both of our cars. Theory 2. I simply misplaced it. This couldn't have happened, not even close to a possibility. The type of person that I am would have found the shirt early on. Also, there's no way that it was just laying on the floor in front of my closet without my noticing. Just not a thing that could have happened. Here are 2 possible theories that I can't debunk. 1, it's a glitch. I don't know. I hear these stories from time to time about strange things happening. Again, I'm pretty skeptical and close to writing off this theory, but because I simply don't know. The second, and more likely, theory, at least in my mind, is something I'm going to have to share in an update. I apologize. It's pretty involved and takes a very dark and unexpected turn, unfortunately. I just don't have the time today to continue, but I will post an update sometime this week on what I suspect happened with a decent percentile of likelihood. Thank you for taking the time to check this out, as unhinged as it sounds. Hey, it's me. I waited long enough to record this to actually read the update, and this is what they said. Update. As I ended my story, I mentioned one single, solitary theory that I came up with that I believe has the highest likelihood. This one takes a while to get there, but hang with me, we will. Before I spit out my theory on what I think caused one of my shirts to disappear from my closet and resurface months later in a much peculiar fashion, first, I need to go back to when I first moved into the apartment. I live in a typical small town in rural America. There's not much going on. The country aspect almost seems to merge with the town. Farms, gas stations, a few dollar stores, Walmart, and restaurants are what's on offer. Also, a small movie theater and skating rink, so, not much is happening. There are a few apartment complexes in town, and they're nothing like you would see in big cities. They're small, consisting of around 20 to maybe 30 units. The one that I moved into is literally on the outskirts of town. Not only that, as I mentioned in the previous post, it's situated right beside the biggest cemetery in town, both of which are atop a sizable hill. This cemetery is no joke. For such a small town, by the size of this graveyard, you'd think it belongs in a much larger city. It's super creepy too. Old, giant angel statues, crumbling headstones, and newer ones too. There's also a couple of walk-in mausoleums there. I don't put much belief in ghosts or paranormal stuff, but even I have to admit, this place is creepy. Nonetheless, big cemetery right here, and right up against it was my apartment complex. Rather odd things started happening to me upon moving in. I try to find natural causes and stuff, and often considered some of these occurrences coincidental or easily explainable, for the most part. Sleep paralysis began for me, so that was terrifying. And never have I ever had sleep paralysis a single day in my life until living in those apartments. There is scientific research and studies about this phenomenon, and so that dispelled any supernatural notions that I may have entertained for a time. But these episodes were horrifying. It hasn't happened since I left and relocated, so moving on to the next oddity. Electronics started going off at random times in my apartment, especially kids' toys. My daughter had one toy with a singing mechanic. You hit one of the buttons and a short song plays. This thing would just start playing songs, and it got to the point where it was so common I would make jokes about a ghost playing tricks again. She had a plastic tea kettle that played a little jingle, and that thing started doing it too. It's super weird to be sitting at home and all of a sudden, in another room, a creepy little jingle starts playing. I wrote it off as faulty mechanics. I didn't research because, well, they're kids' toys. I mean, stuff like that just happens. Here's the next oddity. I spoke of a few characters that lived in my complex, and I hate to use the term unsavory, but a more appropriate word just evades me. Just a few people whom I assume were having substance problems. You probably know the type. Never did I witness anything major from this person or that person, but you could tell drugs were somewhere in the picture. One of my neighbors in an adjacent building would be up late hours in the night, outside mowing his yard. At like 2:30 in the morning, like the sun was shining and the birds were chirping, mowing his lawn without a care in the world. He planted flowers and stuff around his place, but he used cemetery soil. He was confronted by another concerned neighbor who spotted him late one night going over to the fence separating the apartment complex with the cemetery with a small shovel and bucket in hand. He went over the fence, began digging up dirt, filling his bucket, and bringing it back to his apartment to use for his flowers. When asked why, he said the soil in the graveyard is just better, more nutrients. He wasn't digging up graves, rather just the landscape around them. I thought that was super weird and creepy. One night, late, I was sitting at home, about to call it a night and hit the bed when I heard a knock on my door. It's almost midnight. Who's at my door? I go to my door and definitely don't open it, but I ask, "Yeah? Who is it?" The person asked, "Is Matt home? I need to talk to him." "No one here by that name," I said. "You must have the wrong place. No Matt lives here." At this point, I got a good look through the peephole, and it was a super sketchy looking dude, looking around all crazy and seemingly on something. He argued with me for a few, claiming that he was certain his friend Matt was in my apartment and that he needed to see him about something. After some back and forth, the guy left. Come to find out, the next day, an elderly neighbor's place was entered by this same guy. Apparently, the older patron left his door unlocked most always, and this sketchy guy just checked random doors, like mine, until he found one that was open. I honestly can't remember what he ended up taking, but he never got caught, to my knowledge. I can't help but think what would have happened had I opened the door that same night when he came knocking. Why am I sharing this stuff, you may be asking? Well, I'm trying to give a lay of the land, a bit of some backdrop, you could say. So, what caused my shirt to disappear and show up half a year later? Again, what I'm about to share is simply my most plausible story. I think that a certain someone gained access to my home one day when I was at work or when I was at my girlfriend's overnight. I think this specific person eventually felt bad, and after a long time, regained access to my home, and placed the shirt back. They may not have had time to hang it up properly and just placed it at the foot of my closet. This would explain the way the shirt was folded. Now, who was the perpetrator? Well, I believe it was the landlord's granddaughter. This explains how she would have gained entry to my apartment. She had access to the landlord's office, her grandmother, and she could have easily retrieved a spare key for my apartment. She was around 26 at the time, according to my ex-girlfriend, who knows the landlord well and her family. To protect her identity, I'll call her Summer. She also lived at the apartment complex too, just a couple of units down from me. Now, why do I believe Summer did this? Good question. I've considered this over and over, and I believe she had an unhealthy fascination with me. Maybe a weird fixation might be the better term. The reason I say this is because I caught her red-handed one night trying to break into my minivan. This event happened much later on, after my shirt found its way back to me. I was up late night watching TV when I heard some commotion directly outside my apartment. I look out the window, and there's Summer going around my minivan trying to open a door that might have been unlocked. But to her dismay, I lock my doors. I quietly watch, and she's not giving up. She's looking around to see if anyone's watching, and she proceeds to pull hard on my van doors. Finally, enough was enough, and I march outside and confront her. "Summer, what are you doing? I can see you through my window trying to break into my van." She remains silent. She doesn't say a word and just kinda looks off into space as if nothing is happening. After more questioning and her acting weird and silent, I realize she most likely is on something. She didn't try to run away or explain herself or anything. Summer just sort of froze in this weird catatonic state. I figured it had to be drugs, so I convinced her to go back to her apartment and go to bed. I promised that I wouldn't call the cops and that she just needed to get some sleep. I watch her go into her apartment, and then I walk back into mine. Minutes later, I heard those same sounds, my van being tampered with. Here we go. So I go to the window, and now Summer is walking up my steps and trying to open my door. It's locked. I call my girlfriend, who, again, knows her and her family, and ask her to walk down and help me talk some sense into Summer. As much as I wanted to call the law, I felt like I couldn't. It may cause issues between me and the landlord, plus, I kind of felt bad for this girl. She was clearly in a rough state of mind. After hours of me and my girlfriend talking with Summer, she finally calms down and agrees to stop trying to break into my van and into my home. I didn't mention yet, but my daughter is sound asleep upstairs. You can understand my worry. The next morning, Summer's mom comes down from out of town and picks her up and takes her to stay with her for a couple weeks at the behest of my girlfriend calling her. She explained the crazy night with Summer and all that took place. It was determined that Summer had a mental break or some lapse in her psyche. I had heard that she suffered from both mental issues and drug problems. After that incident, some time had went by, and I began to consider the fact that maybe it was Summer who had taken my shirt and then brought it back eventually. I couldn't be sure, but after that episode with her that one night, I wouldn't put it past her. So, I decided to ask her. Summer would come and stay at her apartment a while and go stay with her mom from time to time. This was her routine. At the time, I decided to gently confront her, She'd been to rehab and clean for a few months, but she wasn't down here. She was up at her mom's. She had a baby and was staying with her mom so that her mother could help with the baby. But I just had to know. I had to know that my shirt didn't just glitch out of existence one day and then reappear a while later. I had to ask her. I called my girlfriend and told her my theory, but was abruptly stopped. "Didn't you hear?" she asked. "Did I hear what?" I responded. She said, "I assumed the landlord told you." I said, "I don't know what you're talking about." Summer passed away last week. She died of an overdose. And then silence. Time seemed to stand still. My shirt theory no longer mattered. This young person, this young mother, had passed away. I was incredibly sad and taken aback. I thought she was doing well. I thought she was clean and sobering up. Apparently, Summer had left her mom's one day and never came back. She was reported missing and found a day later, overdosed in her car on the side of the road. It's an extremely sad event, and to this day, I still think about Summer every now and again. I think about how tragic it was that such a young person is no longer around. I think about her little daughter who will never get to know her mom. I think about the potential that was there and how drugs ripped it away. Sadly, this is the case for a lot of people nowadays, young and older. It's just tragic. In the end, I don't know what happened with my shirt. I suspect that I do know what happened, but I can never be certain now. The shirt means nothing when it comes to someone's life being lost. That's the true mystery here. How a young person can vanish so quickly and leave behind a daughter and family who have to deal with the loss. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sorry that it ended like this, but I promised an update with my theory, and there it is.